Welcome to Miami! Welcome to Miami! Right, hi guys, and welcome back to the Crow Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. And don't mind my attire, I've just come off one of the yachts on the Marina Bay in Miami. Absolutely luxurious. It was well worth the many tens of thousands of dollars that people spent to sit on fake water. Absolutely glorious stuff. We love America for its fakeness, but my God, that takes it to the extreme, doesn't it? So if you've never seen this series before, my aim of this video is not only to take the piss out of the Miami Marina Bay, but it's also to award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's results, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. I do award bonus points for extra special efforts. There might be one or two this weekend. Have a think for yourselves. We'll get there in a second. And I'll do award minus points on the very rare occasion that someone does something extra special for all the wrong reasons. So we're going to take a look at the scoreboard as it currently stands from round 4. It's on the screen now for you. Take a look, take it all in, digest it. Where is your favourite driver? Can you see him going up? Can you see him going down? All will be revealed in the next 20 to 30 minutes, although if it was like last time, it was 43 minutes 27 seconds, and my God, I had to edit that down from an hour and 15 minutes. Jesus, I do rant a lot in this cupboard. So we're going to kick things off with the race winner, Max Verstappen. What a good drive that was. The Red Bull clearly showing its advantage as it goes from, you know, the high-speed circuits. It just is so fast in a straight line, isn't it? So fast. It's unbelievable. And that is just letting them have the edge at the minute over the Ferrari. If Ferrari really want to keep this points advantage that Shalala has, they really need to find some straight line speed and fast. Only reliability is costing Red Bull at the moment. Slight issues again this weekend, of course, with Max Verstappen in FP1. He brushed the wall, didn't he, I believe, in FP1, and that meant that they had to precautionary change the gearbox. Then that led to further issues, an hydraulic issue in FP2, meant it could hardly steer. And he had flames out the back of the brakes because they were getting too hot, and it was just a bit of a nightmare. Got it all together though, FP3, cracking FP3, and then qualifying comes and he gets it all wrong in his final push lap in Q3, and unfortunately lines up third instead of what really should have been pole with the straight line speed of that Red Bull. And then in the race, took him 8 to 9 laps, and then eventually he breezed past Shalala. And then it was all comfortable there for him, really, wasn't it? The gap just kept extending. Then we had the VSC and, of course, late safety car, which meant that Charles bunched up again. And it was tense, wasn't it, for a few laps? It was tense. Charles was right on the back of him there. And I was like, oh, is he going to do a lunge? Is he going to do a lunge? But in the end, he didn't. But it was very exciting last few laps. But as mentioned, that straight line speed of the Red Bull just gave them that little bit of advantage and just that little bit to be able to be fended off in the DRS zones from a charging Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So, for Max Verstappen, it's a shame he got qualifying wrong because it should have been a pole, really. But apart from that, he had a pretty faultless weekend and drove smartly to get himself up to P2 and then up to P1 from his P3 starting position. That was a great start as well, actually. Forgot to mention that. Round the outside of Carlos Sainz. Put Sainz in a position where he could not do anything right for doing wrong, really. Round the outside, lovely move. So for Max Verstappen, it's going to be 9 points on the board. 9 points. Well done, Max Verstappen. Only a qualifying issue just hampered me there a little bit. It should have been pole, but it wasn't to be. That's one of those things, isn't it? But, you know, there we go. Not criticising him too much, but can't be a perfect 10 if he didn't get pole. So 9 points to Max. And then we come to Shalala. Here he is, Shalala, making up from his dismal Imola. There's no Palmers flashing around for him, is there? But we'll get there. Yeah, it was a great race by Charles, definitely. A great pole lap. He was a couple of tenths ahead of Carlos Sainz. Initially, it looked on the laps, didn't it? We knew that Max had aborted his lap because he got the snap of oversteer. And it was so close between Carlos and Charles Leclerc. But ultimately, it was Shalala that delivered the results and finished a couple of tenths ahead of his teammate, taking a well-deserved pole position in the end. And yeah, Charles's race, it didn't really go wrong for him, but it was just the straight line speed of the Red Bull. I think Charles must have made a mistake. He did go wide, didn't he, at turn 17, actually, remembering back on recollection, when he was just sort of outside the DRS zone and he was trying to catch back up and get within the DRS zone of Max. after he overtook him in the early stages of the race, and he just went wide, and that cost him a second, and then once he was out the toe, Max was able to just pull away. So, for Shalala, it is going to be 9 points to him as well. It was a good drive, it was a solid drive, and just not quite a perfect 10, because there were just a couple of little mistakes there that let him lose the toe to Max, and he did a great charge at the end there after the safety car. It'd be nice to see more of that action a little bit sooner in the race, but you know, that's racing, isn't it? And I don't want to discredit Charles for everything he did. The pole lap was magnificent, the race was really good as well. It'd just be nice to see him have a couple more attacks at Max, especially in those latter stages and earlier in the race too, if he didn't make those little mistakes, thumping over the curbs, etc. Desperate to catch up to Max, which cost him more time in the end. So, yeah, well done, Shalala. Second place. The championship lead from 40 points down to 19 points now in the space of 2 races. That is madness, isn't it? Absolute madness. So, yeah, we'll look forward to seeing how that's going. But, yes, it's certain to say that Ferrari need to find some straight line speed if they are to continue leading this championship like they are at the minute. Next up, we have Carlos Sainz. Here he is, picking up another podium after 2 dismal rounds previously, where he hasn't even completed a lap, I don't think, has he? So, yeah, he's done fairly terrible as Carlos in the last couple of races, and then we got into practice, didn't we? And what did he do? He crashed. Oh, it was like a never-ending theme with him. He just crashed again, but thankfully it wasn't in qualifying, and thankfully it wasn't in the race, and he got it out of his system early, but he still caused some damage to that Ferrari once again for the 3rd consecutive race weekend. He caused damage to his Ferrari, which is not what the team are wanting. But here he is, picking up 3rd place. I would say a lucky P3 as well. He certainly didn't have the measure of Charles or Max this race, and you know, Perez behind was managing an issue with his car, which meant he was losing like almost 30 brake horsepower over a single lap. So, and the fact that Perez was having a go at him, you know, it wasn't a great race weekend by Carlos. Nice that he picked up a podium. That is good for him. A bit of a boost of confidence there for him. A front row start as well. But yeah, it's clear to see now who is the front runner in that Ferrari car, and Sainz has had a couple of bad rounds. He's not got it all together just yet. I'm sure his race win will come this season. He's looking really strong for it. Ferrari are looking really strong for it. A little bit of extra straight line speed and a little bit more comfort in the car for Carlos, and he will get there. But for now, it's just going to be 7 points. I can't forgive him for that crash in practice. That's a lot of damage in the last few races for Ferrari. And then in the race itself, quickly dropped off the back of his teammate and had Perez all over him after that safety car restart. And he was nursing an issue. So, there we go. 7 points to Carlos Sainz. I still love you, Carlos, but that wasn't a great drive. And then we come to Sergio Perez. It's lonely in P4 for him, really, wasn't it, to be honest? He did a good start. It looked like he was going to try and get Carlos, but just didn't quite pull it off the line. And, yeah, qualifying P4, okay. You know, Max was there in P3. Should have been higher. I think Perez would have really wanted P3. And, you know, Max on pole, Sergio P3, I think that would have been more beneficial for the Red Bull team, of course, both starting on the clean side of the track. Wasn't to be. And then in the race, yeah, he was making a good effort on Carlos Sainz, and he lost the DRS initially, then got it back, and then just as he got inside the DRS window, he had a sensor failure that meant that they had to switch sensors, and then that cost him performance because it wasn't the right sensor for the job that it was feeding. And it just cost him, I think it was about 7 seconds, wasn't it, really? It was a lonely 7 seconds behind Carlos at that point, after he lost the DRS and had to sort the issue out. And then from then, he was 30 brake horsepower down every single lap for the remainder of the race. So it was a good job that he managed to keep P4, and it was really encouraging to see him attacking Carlos Sainz, despite the fact that he got that deficit. I know he went on the fresh and medium compound tyres, of course, during the late safety car. That really helped him maintain the P4. But he did a really good job to close up to Carlos, and yeah, fantastic effort by him there. It's not a perfect 10, but it is going to be 8 points to Sergio Perez. I think he drove really well with the car he was given, the problems that he had. It would have been nice to see him get Carlos at the start of the race, but it wasn't to be. But in the end, I don't think it would have mattered anyway, because that problem that he had with his power unit, I think Carlos would have slipped through. Having said that, we don't know, do we? fate is fate, and we don't know how it's going to work out. But yeah, for Sergio Perez, a good drive there, nursing an issue well, and it's going to be 8 points to him. Well done to Sergio Perez. I've taken my glasses off. I can't see shit. I'm really struggling, but I'll put them round my neck like an old nana. There we go. Look at that lovely stuff. Next up, we come to George Russell. George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5. Here he is once again. Finishing P5, a stunning effort. A difficult qualifying, but the car looks to have pace. It was like George was saying at the end of qualifying, we just don't know where the car is. We don't know why it switches on. We don't know why it switches off. But when it's in the zone, it's quick. And we saw that throughout practice. We saw it in Quali 1 as well to a certain extent. George putting in a cracking lap in qualifying 1. And then in qualifying 2, snap of oversteer, snap of oversteer, snap of oversteer. It just didn't want to play, did it? And unfortunately that meant that he couldn't get a really good lap in, and he was starting in P12, which was a great shame, because I think that had George started further up, we could have seen him on the podium this weekend, and I don't think that's a too far of a stretch to say either, because his race pace initially struggled on the hard compound tyres. He was on the alternate strategy, but then that alternate strategy came good when we had the Gasly and Norris incident, and from there he went onto the new medium tyres, was able to nip past his teammate, and there he was securing P5. So had that safety car not happened, and you know, he'd have had to pit onto the medium compound tyres without gaining a free pit stop, he would have come out in P8 or P9 where Gasly was, but obviously it all kicked off there. So say if Gasly lost pace like he did, but obviously didn't bring out a safety car, he'd have come out P8, and I've no doubt in my mind he'd have still finished P5, because he was on fire. He drove so well in that latter stages of that race. Once the weight had come off the car, and once the hard tyres had grooved in as well, especially, you know, he was really struggling for the first 10 laps, and then after that the car came alive again, and they don't know why it does, but it did. And George is really getting the measure of it in the races, but struggling over the 1 lap pace at the moment. So yeah, for George Russell, it's going to be 9 points. The only driver still to finish in the top 5, and that wasn't looking likely, was it, after that qualifying? But there he is. A lucky safety car, but drove a great, clean and tidy race until that point. He deserves everything he gets. So well done to George Russell. It is going to be 9 points to you. And then we come to George's teammate Lewis Hamilton, and what could be said? I was going to be, you know, really kind to him. I was going to say, yeah, fantastic effort there, did all you could on the old hard tyres, but what was all that radio call about? Oh, I don't care, just put me on whatever strategy you think it is, I'm driving the freaking car. Like, normally, Lewis, you're telling them when you want to pit, and you're an absolute miracle worker for that, aren't you? You normally, oh yeah, I came up with this strategy, I'm great. But now they're asking you, what do you want to do? We've got a VSC, it's going into a safety car. Oh, I don't know, you tell me, I'm driving the car. Like, where's that gone? It's like he's lost his sense of ambition because he's not winning. It was frustrating. That was really frustrating, because I think he could have pitted for the medium tyres and not lost much time, and I think knowing Hamilton as a driver, he could have climbed his way back through, and he could have finished ahead of Russell. It could have, you know, could he have maybe got Perez with the hailing problems that he had? You don't know, do you? But he just gave up. He was immediately defeatist over the radio, like, that's not my decision. And in the press pen afterwards, he's like, yeah, that's the team's choice, I'm just there to drive the car. Like, it's not been you for the last 8-9 years that we've had you in the sport, Lewis. You've always dictated when you want to pit and whether that's the right call, the wrong call, and now seemingly you don't care. But the only thing you were bothered about were, if I pit, will I be behind George? Well, yeah, you will, because he's behind you on mediums. But I just, it was frustrating. That frustrated me, because it didn't annoy me, but it frustrated me, because I'm like, why are you suddenly being like this? Yeah, you're not winning races, you know, the car's a bit of a pig to handle every now and again, but why aren't you working with your team to get the best result possible? Why was it all about, as long as I'm ahead of George? Well, George, we're going to get you anyway, because you're on the fresh mediums, and that's not what it's all about at the minute. I don't know. So yeah, I've knocked him off a point for that, and it's just going to be 7 for Lewis Hamilton. It wasn't a rant, and it wasn't moaning over the radio, but it just confused me as to why all of a sudden he's like that. I know it's a defeatist attitude. I think personally, I think he's given up the ghost. Oh, for fuck's sake, you know, I'm not winning races, I'm not on podium, what's the point? You make a decision for me, and if you screw up, it's your fault. And then But that's not how you work. You work as a team, you lose as a team, you know. Oh well, there we go. But yeah, 7 points to Hamilton anyway. I'm going to stop there because I might get definitely told off for moaning about him twice in 2 race weekends. Jesus Christ. Anyway, who's next? Next up, Valtteri Bottas in P7. Oh, Valtteri, you were going to get a perfect 10. What a stunning qualifying. What a stunning race. Holding off the Mercedes well, who were squabbling behind after the late safety car, and then what did you do? You went wide. You went wide at the penultimate corner, and then you nearly stuffed it into the barrier. And I'm like, oh God, Bottas, don't crash. And then the 2 Mercedes got past, and had it not been for that, I've got a funny feeling that once George had got past Lewis, then George would have got Bottas, but I think Bottas would have been finishing P6 today and not P7 had it not been for that mistake, that one wide moment letting 2 Mercedes through that it was holding off for so long and for so well. Oh dear. So I'm going to have to knock him 1.5 points off for that, and I'm going to award him 8.5. 8.5 for Valtteri Bottas. That was a shame. That was a big, big shame there. He certainly would have been on for 6. Definitely 6. So it cost him his team a couple of points. Cost him 1.5 points on the cruel room. Cruel to be kind. I cannot believe how much I am loving Bottas this season, but he really has come alive since leaving Mercedes. And driving ahead of the Mercedes for the entirety of the race apart from that mistake. And qualifying ahead of the Mercedes as well. Bravo, Valtteri. Well done, buddy. And yes, 8.5 on the cruel room. I'm being cruel to be kind there, Valtteri. I want to see you do really well, and I don't think it's going to be too long before you start beating the Mercedes and actually getting across the line ahead of them. So, congratulations, Valtteri. Your day will come when that happens, but this one, we were so close yet so far. So, Valtteri, 8.5 to you. And next up, we have Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. And what could be said for his race, really? It was a tale of 2 fortunes, wasn't it? It all went wrong in FP3 for him when he slammed it into the wall, the same place that Sainz did in FP2. That meant he cracked the chassis. That meant he couldn't get out for qualifying and was starting firmly at the back of the grid. So, big, big shame there by Esteban's standards. But here he is, finishing in P8. And that was a good drive to get up there, wasn't it? He had a lot of squabbling to get past and a lot of squabbling to get through. And in theory, it was actually quite an invisible car doing so, because I didn't recall seeing much of him in that race. But it must be said that it was a good drive, but I just can't help but think what could have happened in that race for Esteban Ocon had he not had that crash in FP3, which meant he couldn't qualify, because he's clearly delivering really well in that Alpine at the moment and showing Alonso up to a certain extent. Alonso being incredibly unlucky in the last few rounds, but this time it was really Alonso's doing, wasn't it? So, for Esteban Ocon, a great result, but I am just going to award him 7 points. 7 points, and that again is a bit like Bottas. I'm being cruel to be kind there, because I think Ocon's done a stunning job. I think he did really, really well to secure that P8, but had to benefit from a bit of carnage, which is not his fault at all, but I'd have just... Oh, if only he'd have not crashed in FP3 and done a chassis. You know, that's a big, big damage for the team, that, to swap a chassis over overnight and to rule yourself out of qualifying by a silly mistake, and that can't go unpunished to the point where you can't qualify. So, yeah, 7 points to Ocon. He's done a cracking job this year, though, and I don't want to put him down in any way, shape or form, but crashing in free practice to the point where you can't qualify, can't go unpunished, and he did a really smart, clever drive to get his way up to the points, but where could he have been? I think he could have been ahead of potentially... I mean, looking at the pace, could he have been ahead of the Mercedes? Maybe. I think he'd have certainly been ahead of Bottas, though, after his mistake, had he just been that little bit closer, and could have been ahead of Hamilton as well. So, we shall see, but there we go. We're not to know what happens, but Ocon, it's a loving 7 points for him, because he's doing really well, as mentioned. Just, it can't go unpunished, the fact he couldn't qualify. So there you go. 7 points to Ocon. And then we come to Alexander Albon. Here he is. Wow, oh, wow, Alex in P9 after crossing the line, P10. So he scored a point anyway, and he doubles that account now after Alonso's further 5-second time penalty at the end of the race. So, congratulations, Alex. What a stunning, stunning drive. I'm so, so chuffed for you. You've done fantastically well this year. So he comes off the back of a 10th and 11th and now a 9th. Oh, he's doing so well, isn't he? I cannot praise this lad enough. He is delivering some fantastic results in a car that really is the last car on the grid. It is the back marker. And he's driving so well. And he's just keeping himself out of trouble. The team and himself are electing to go for the right strategies at the right times. And everything's just falling into place for him. And he's turning a lot of heads at the minute, including mine. I always loved Alex when he was at Toro Rosso and when he went up to Red Bull, of course. But he just says now, like he said in the interview afterwards, I've just matured, I've just been training, and I'm just a lot more confident now in my own abilities, as well as understanding what a team wants from me. And it's so nice to see him doing so well. And here he is, rewarded again with a couple of points for the Williams squad, and he's got 3 points on the board now. Aston Martin have got 6, so actually closes the gap there. Unbelievable. So well done to Williams. I really hope they find these tweaks. He said there's a couple more updates coming for Spain, and they're hoping that makes them a little bit more confident with the car. And yeah, fantastic effort. So it's going to be 11 points to Albon. I will just mention, I know qualifying wasn't brilliant for him. He couldn't get the tyres switched on. Again, suffering a bit like a Mercedes. When it's good, it's obviously a good car. You can get points, but over a one-lap pace, maybe struggling a little bit more. But from where that car is, it shouldn't be in the points. And he is delivering absolutely amazingly. So well done to Alexander Albon. It's 11 points to you, sir. My driver of the day. I'm sure a lot of driver of the days as well go out to Alexander Albon, and there we go, a thoroughly deserving drive there. Well done, Alex. 11 points to you. I can't stop praising him. It's such a good result for him. So yeah, well done, Alex. And then we come to the last of the point scorers that we're really actually finished 12th, but here he is in 10th. It is Lance Stroll. Now, is it cruel to be kind? I'm not too sure. He drove fantastically well in qualifying, got himself into Q3 and P9 on the grid, I believe it was. And then Aston Martin couldn't start either car because their fuel temperature was too cool. And if they'd have been noted for having too cool a temperature at the start of the race, then they'd have just been thrown out at the end. They'd have been disqualified. So elected to warm the fuel up and start from the pit lane. So that was an unfortunate error there by Aston Martin. Something went wrong, not Stroll's fault. And then in the race, Stroll drove really well. He was plucking his way through the field nicely, started on the hard tyres. He was getting involved with the Haas's, he was getting involved with the Williams, he was getting involved with the Alpha Tauris, and driving really well. But then this is where it all went wrong, didn't it? It looked like he was on for points. But then after that safety car, he just decided to get into an absolute fist fights with Kevin Magnussen. Happened at turn 1, they both went off and they tumbled down the order. Then they decided to have another ram raid into each other again at the end. And it was just that was so unnecessary, because had that not happened, he'd have finished P8 today instead of P10 and took more points for Aston Martin and managed to bridge the gap further to Williams, which is something I didn't expect to be saying, but instead the gap closes. And it was just a little bit of silliness there by Stroll at the end. He was ahead of his teammate for the duration until he just got into fisticuffs with Kevin Magnussen, which was a shame. Cost both of the drivers. Here he is securing a point after other people's penalties. It was one of those. So it's going to be 7.5. 7.5 to Stroll. I'd really love to give him more, but I just can't help but feel he cost himself 3 points today. I think he should have been ahead of the cars that actually got penalties. That's why he got a point. I think he should have been in the points anyway, and then up further as a result. So, yeah, Stroll, it was such a good drive. It's hard to put him down, but had he not had the ram raid with Kevin Magnussen, and I'm not just saying it was Stroll's fault, but it was just both of them driving into each other and clattering into each other towards the end. Had that not happened, it'd have been 8th, and that's a frustrating thing for Aston Martin. They'd recovered well and then threw it all away. So there we go. 7.5 to Lance Stroll. Cruel to be kind on the crawl room. And then we come to Fernando Alonso in 11th place, just outside the points, after crossing the line in P9, but getting a 5-second time penalty, which would have demoted him to where... No, actually, did he cross the line P8 then? He was ahead of Ocon, wasn't he? So yeah, crossed the line P8, 5-second time penalty P9, 5-second time penalty again, P11. Here he is outside the points. He escapes a Palmer, and I'm struggling to understand why. I've got to be honest, I do not know why he's not got a Palmer here today. I've been thinking about it, but the scores are in now. I can't do anything about that. Yeah, poor drive. Poor drive. He clattered into Hamilton at the start, clattered into Gasly, causing Gasly damage, and then I just don't know. And then he cut a corner to give him another self a 5-second time penalty again. Frustrating for Alonso. And I think the only reason why I've not given him a Palmer is because he's been incredibly unlucky this year with his car or with reliability, or when he would look like he'd be on pace, something went wrong. So I think this is his first genuine bad mistake this weekend. So letting him off the leash a little bit there, but I'm just trying to justify why, and to be honest, I am struggling. So I don't know why I did it. I didn't give him a Palmer. Maybe he should have been due. I think he'll have to watch his back from now on, though, because I've taken note now. He does need to deliver. And for Alonso, a race weekend to forget once again. Still only 2 points on the board, languishing down in 16th in the standings, or whatever daft it is, behind Alexander Albon. Let's just put that into perspective as well. So yeah, for Fernando Alonso, it's just 2 points. 2 points on the board to Alonso. It wasn't a great score. Lucky to escape a Palmer. Yeah, just a terrible race, really. All unravelled. Just crap. And then we come to Yuki Tsunoda.
Aston Martin would be the perfect team for me. They can't score points either. Oh wait, they have, the bastards.
And there we are for Yuki. Oh, Yuki. And a lot of people are going to feel that's harsh based on what other drivers have done in the race this weekend and what they've done during the sessions. But for Yuki, it was going so well. Qualifying was brilliant. And then in the race, where the frick did it go? This is the only reason why he gets a Palmer, and this is genuinely the reason. I forgot he was in the race. After he stopped, because his medium tyres had gone off at the start, he was the first to pit. He was nowhere, and the only time I saw him again was Latifi was trying to overtake him. Let's just try and put that into some sort of perspective there. Nicholas Latifi was trying to overtake Tsunoda, and that was the first I saw of him after the stops. So he made no progress whatsoever on the hard tyres after he pitted, and stayed down with Latifi. And I don't want to put Latifi down. I think he drove well this race. But I couldn't believe it. I was gobsmacked. And he did nothing. Here he is in P12 as a result of everyone else taking each other out at the end. Absolute bloody smash fest. It was like watching Wreckfest as opposed to Formula 1 at the end with the amount of contact. And he elevates himself to P12, but he should have got it together. He should have been in the points, easily in the points for AlphaTauri today, judging by the pace and the ramming of everyone else. But if a Williams is in the points, an AlphaTauri should definitely be. And Tsunoda, cruel to be kind, I think. Again, I'm liking that saying a lot at the minute, but it really was just a race to forget. And I did actually forget he was in it. So that's how forgetful it was. So didn't do anything really wrong, but obviously just didn't have the pace. And there we go. So yeah, Palmer of the Week to Tsunoda. Let me know if that were harsh or not in the comments below, especially when Alonso escapes one. But, you know, Yuki, you've got to deliver, and you're not at the minute. So book your ideas up, pal. I do love you. But that one was a really lonely race by your standards. So yeah, there we go. Palmer of the Week to Yuki Tsunoda. And then we come to Daniel Ricciardo and another one. I am starting to think, do I just love him too much to give him a Palmer? I was certainly harsh to him last year, but this year he avoids another one. He'd have finished in P10 after Alonso's penalty. Had he not got a 5-second penalty himself for cutting the same chicane Alonso did? And there he is down in 13th as a result. So could have maybe scraped a point there, but instead threw it all away by silliness, cutting a corner and gaining a lasting advantage. Oh dear. I don't know what to do with Ricciardo, because it looked like, the thing is, it looked like the McLaren wasn't that great this weekend. Certainly didn't look to have the pace it did in Imola, where he threw it away, where he probably should have had a Palmer there. And then here, you know, he was on the back of a Norris at least, but Norris had a slow stop, which weren't his fault. He'd have still been behind the gaggle anyway that he ended up stuck behind. And then almost gets a point and then does something silly like cutting a corner. So, you know, it's difficult with him. It really is. Let me know what you think below, because I am struggling with Ricciardo now. Again, maybe it should have been a Palmer. I'm doubting myself now. I don't know why I'm so kind these days. I am certainly mellowing in my old age. But yes, Palmer of the week evades Ricciardo for possibly the second race weekend running. But I really cannot give him any more excuses now. So I'm going to be absolutely ruthless with the Palmers next weekend. And we'll throw everything at them if they deserve it. So yeah, it is just going to be 3 points to Daniel Ricciardo. 3 points. So not a brilliant score, but... yeah, maybe should have been a Palmer again. Doubting myself now. Stop it, Josh. Stop doubting yourself. It's your series, you do what you want. But yeah, 3 points to Daniel Ricciardo. And then we come to Nicholas Latifi, and as mentioned, I genuinely think this was his best race weekend of the season so far. He was only a 10th behind his teammate in qualifying, which is not to be sniffed at. Look how well Albon's going. And in the race, he was getting stuck in. He had some great battles with the Aston Martins, had some great battles with Alpha Tauris, particularly Tsunoda as mentioned. And he was driving well. He drove really well. He defended well. He attacked well. And yeah, okay, you know, he was last of the runners for quite a while. And then I quickly noted that he'd not actually pitted yet, while everyone else around him had and were already ahead of him. So that meant he was like 40 seconds behind the next car. But I think it was a confident boosting weekend for Nicholas Latifi. He managed to get on the back of the crocodile, didn't he, after the safety car, and was only within a few seconds of everyone then. And all the chaos kicking off means he finishes ahead of a couple of Haas's on the road and then the DNF. So, yeah, you know, Latifi, genuinely, I know people are going to hate me for this, but I think it was his best race. I think it was his best race, and I think he deserves 6 points for it. The qualifying in particular impressed me. Only within a 10th of Albon, has to be praised for that. And then in the race, drove really well. Drove some nice battles, nice attacks, nice defending. At the end, he finished last of the runners nearly, that didn't have problems anyway. But there we go. I don't think he deserves anything really bad this weekend. I think he deserves a little bit of praise, and that was his best race weekend. So, fair play. 6 points to Nicholas Latifi. And then we come to Mick Schumacher.
Hey, don't tell anyone, but I was driving Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes in Imola.
And all I can say to that is, oh Mick, why? All those penalties around you for Alonso and Ricciardo, it didn't mean that you had to make that lunge on Vettel. You would have scored points. What a shame. What a shame with just 2 or 3 laps to go, wasn't it? There wasn't many left. He just lunged it up the inside of Seb and just took them both out. And they both thoroughly deserve points this weekend. Vettel for his charge through. Mick for the fact he managed to match Magnussen all race weekend long. He was only just behind him. He was saying he was quicker. He got ahead of him. He then actually started to pull away from K-Mag, the safety car. He was out on the hard tyres, and it just all went wrong, didn't it? Just all at the end, and everything was going so right. So, big shame for Mick. It's another Palmer of the week, the second consecutive Palmer. Oh dear, is all I can say to that. Really, oh dear. I think, judging by what I've given, you know, Alonso and Ricciardo avoiding Palmers, Mick certainly deserved it more, didn't he? Because he really did throw away points quite literally and took his friend out as well. It was nice to see him afterwards. They didn't get to meet each other in the press conference I saw, but they were both looking for each other to have a chat, and Vettel was like, oh yeah, I really want to help him with this and we'll get through it. And I was like, oh, Sebastian, my heart melts. But yeah, it was nice to see that afterwards, and there were both like really no animosity between the two. Obviously we didn't see them together, but I know there'd have been no animosity from the interviews afterwards. So, yeah, Mick, Palmer of the week, second one running. I can't excuse that. That was a desperate dive there, which wasn't really needed. It wasn't needed. You're in the points. You would have scored points. It wasn't as if it was an 11th and 10th battle and no penalties ahead for Alonso, which we knew he did have. So, there we go, one of those things. But Palmer of the week to Mick. I love you, Mick. I really wish you all the best. Let's get some points soon. But it has to be Palmer. And then we come to the last of the finishers. It is Mick Schumacher's teammate. Oh, K-Mag. Oh, dear me. It all went so wrong for Haas, didn't it? And as mentioned earlier, he got into an absolute shunt fest with Stroll towards the latter stages of the race, coming together on more than one occasion. and both sending each other down the order. And Kevin Magnussen suffered more damage clearly than what Aston Martin's Lance Stroll did, because Lance picks up a point as a result of penalties. Here's K-Mag down in 16th, last of the finishers, and it could have been so much better for Haas had they just driven a bit more smarter, the pair of them. They both could have been in the points, but there we go. That's racing, isn't it? You don't know at the time, you don't know who you're fighting, where you're fighting, and you make some desperate lunges, and neither of them were needed. Neither of them were needed. K-Mag avoids a Palmer on the basis that he actually has done really well for the team up until this point, and was doing really well until the latter stages. But it's just 2 points on the board for him. He escapes a Palmer, but it's still only 2 points on the board. He really needs to book his ideas up now. K-Mag, that was a bad race that could have delivered some points for you. Absolutely. Both Hasses should have been in the points. Both failed to deliver. Both got a little bit desperate and a little bit silly. But there we go. At least K-Mag scored 15 points for Haas at the minute, and Mick Schumacher none. So that's why there's a Palmer and no Palmer, but a very low score of 2 to Kevin Magnussen. Then we come to Sebastian Vettel, a late retirement as a result of course, him getting taken out by Mick. Big shame for Seb. He was driving really well. It looked like Stroll actually had the better of him from that pit lane start, didn't it? He was behind him for the majority, but then Stroll started getting into the crash fest with K-Mag, so he slipped through, looked like he was on for points, and then got took out by Mick. A big shame. Retired the car with just a few laps remaining. Middle of the row 5, it's all I can give for the retirements. I can only give retirements a maximum of 5. A shame for Vettel, because I would have liked to have given him more. But there we go, rules are rules. I can't go favouritism for one team against another, or one driver against another. So yeah, middle of the row 5 to Vettel. Big shame, big damage for Aston Martin. And just a shame, it would have been points again. And then we come to Pierre Gasly, avoids a Palmer by this much again. At least he was up there in the points, or at least fighting for points. He had an issue with the car. He got hit by Alonso, which damaged the suspension, it appears now, actually looking back, so I'm glad I didn't give him a Palmer. He went wide and then went wide again, and then was trying to rejoin the track and just didn't see Norris. Took Norris out, caused that late safety car. And for Gasly, it is the first issue we've seen from him this season, a first mistake in taking out Norris. But the car was damaged anyway for Pierre, so that was a shame. I think he was going to retire from the race at that point. And in fact he did, didn't he? He stayed out at the safety car and then pitted during it. Clearly too much damage caused by Alonso's contact. Yeah, a shame. So it's just 2 points to Pierre. I do blame him for taking Lando out. That was his fault. But nursing a damaged car after being rammed by Alonso on the marbles, on the dirty side of the track, trying to figure the car out. Just a lapse of concentration, and here we are. A DNF for Pierre Gasly, and just 2 points on the cruel room. And then we come to Lando Norris, an innocent victim in Pierre's accident there, unfortunately. And it's just a middle of the row 5 again to Lando. Looked to have pace. That slow pit stop really cost him, though. Put him behind the gaggle of the Aston Martins, the Haas's and Alonso. And had it not been for 2 seconds extra in the pit stop, he would have come out ahead of those cars. Which is a big shame, because that could have changed the entirety of his race. He wouldn't have got involved with Gasly, and he could have been on for some solid points, maybe even a P7, P8 finish. He was certainly on for a few points there, wasn't he? So, big shame. But yes, middle of the row 5 to Lando Norris, like I do for any retirement, a maximum of 5, and that's all I can give him. So yeah, 5 points to Lando. And then last but by no means least is Zhou Guanyu, and a big shame for Zhou. He couldn't do anything right, could he? He just had a weekend to forget, not his fault at all. For Zhou Guanyu, it was one of those race weekends to forget. Qualifying, would he have got out of Q1? I'm not too sure. Maybe, just maybe. But we're never going to know, because an absolute line of traffic on the inside at turn 17 meant he had to abort his final push lap to get through. That meant he was out, and that was a shame to see. Not his fault, one of those things. And then in the race, we'd only saw him complete a couple of laps, and then he had to retire due to a mechanical issue. So, didn't get to see what Zhou was capable of. It was looking like he was well off the pace of his teammate anyway. But with all this chaos that happened, if he'd have been in the race, where could he have ended up? Could it have been points? We're never going to know. So, a middle of the row 5 to Zhou. A weekend to forget, unfortunately for him. Blocked in qualifying, out of position start, and then in the race, retired after a couple of laps. We could do no other. We couldn't see what he was capable of. So there we go. an unfortunate one for Zhou. So there we have it, guys. That were the runners and riders of the Miami Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The results are on the screen now. Let's have a look at that leaderboard. Who's climbing, who's falling? Oh, I can't believe who's at the bottom. That's a big surprise, isn't it? So yeah, let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? A massive, massive thank you, as always, to Dan of Mushy Gaming for his amazing scoreboard that he provides. Without him, this series will be more pointless than it already is. And, of course, a big thank you to him for doing the intros for me as well at the start of the video. And who can forget F1 Games PlayStation, the absolute legend, for providing me with the Jolyon Palmer skits that you all know and love by now. Some absolute belters this weekend, wasn't it? And there's more to come, I promise. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time for the Spanish Grand Prix. Cannot wait. Let's see how it goes. And yes, as always, thanks a lot for watching and much love.